and headed on out the main road. I'd gone about 60 or 70 miles. And I'm not sure now whether I caught up with him or they caught up with me. But we met anyway. I was a young fella, about my own age, on a bike, about my own type of bike, you know. And his girlfriend, you see.
What kind of bike did you have?
Matchless.
Matchless. No.
Matchless.
Matchless.
He had an AGS, and the Matchless and the AGS were made by the same company. They were almost identical, very little different. Even AGS. And she was up the back. And that's much gear as they could carry and stuff. So, we hit it off anyway, and trundled along together and stuff like that. And we got into New South Wales, and the weather was very hot, and there was a hot wind. And we stopped occasionally, I suppose, along the way to eat or drink or whatever it was. And by the time we were sort of around Albury or somewhere on the border of New South Wales, she said, "Oh, Jesus Christ, it's hot," like, and stuff like that. We were all agreed it was very hot. And she was feeling sort of nervous. Well, anyway, of course, whether we were in a cafe or whatever it was, we were revived now, and we stayed half an hour, like, got back on the bikes again, and off we went. And we weren't going to make it to Sydney in the one day, you see. So we decided that we'd pull into a place called Gundagai. You might have heard of Australian folklore, it's quite famous. The dog sat on the tucker box 9 miles from Gundagai. It's famous. The Banjo Palace. Folklore. We went into Gundagai anyway, and she tried to get off of the bike. She almost fell. And we didn't realise what was wrong with her. Should have known, but he didn't have the experience, and I didn't think about it really. Because when you get used to travelling in the bush like that, I mean, I should have, you know. She was sitting behind, so maybe that's why we thought we would always wear, you know, something right up here, like, you know, and I had goggles as well. And protect your face from the wind, you know. But she didn't have anything. And her face was fucking, came out, like, all of a sudden, you know, when they say for a sudden, that's why she was feeling 100 miles before that, you know, where we stopped 200 miles, whatever. And she had to go to hospital there and then. First they went to a doctor. The doctor said, "Oh, Jesus," he said, "You've got to go to the hospital immediately." And they bathed her, put all sorts of stuff on her face and all that. But she suffered agony. She fucking very, very sick. And they kept her there. I left next day to receive the hospital. He stayed.
Burned.
Scorched. Fucking flesh ripped off.
Thanks, huh?
Yeah. I'd been around the town working on construction jobs, jack-acting. And I don't know what to look for like some cement. Went out the shop, motorbike shop. I even remember where it is. He's still there, hardly. And there was another fellow just walking out in front of me. He'd been served as well, about my own age, actually. And I walked to my bike and I sat in the saddle or something. I did what I was getting was underneath that side, you know. And his bike was parked next to mine, and I don't know which of us said hello or spoke, but we got talking. And as usually is the case, well, with me anyways, most people like what are you doing, and blah, blah, blah. So he told me and I told him, and the next thing was one of us said, I think it was me, oh yes, I've got the sack off your job. He probably asked me, what are you doing? And I said, I'm thinking fucking off out of town. Like, you know, he said, when? Oh, I said, I don't know, the next couple of days. He said, I was thinking that too. And so I said, well, you know, when did you have any notion? He said, you know, you like? Tomorrow? Thanks. So I see you here, so he did. And
just like that.
That's right. And where we went, where are we going? Don't know. Where would you like to go? Anywhere? So I said, well, I've used to think for years I'd like to go up around Darwin and stuff like that, you know. And he said, fine. We'll go northeast, like northwest. Fuck, I had a lighter there. But he said, I have a friend of mine, he said, like, you know, instead of a mate of mine, he'd probably come to us. It's all the same to me. But I should have known, of course. I should have known, but I didn't. That it would look funny if he had to carry him all the way. But I wouldn't have to carry him sometimes, give him a break. Which is the thing I'm not that keen on. It's all right, I don't mind going like 15 or 20 miles with a billion passenger, you know, on the back. Maybe 30 miles. Going hundreds of miles is another thing altogether, yeah. So, anyway, off we went, and we went up through Orange and Dubbo and Cootamundra and, you know, all of these places. And we ended up, we were in, about 15 miles outside of Cobar. It was an old mining, lead mining, copper mining town. And we were going down a slight incline. The road was very bad. It was all corrugated from getting worn, you know corrugations, yeah. And in very bad places, you had to slow right down to 5 miles an hour. Because you couldn't escape it, go off the sides or anything like that. Or else you had to go over it at about 80. Or as fast as you could, like between 65 and 75, you know. And then you only feel a little grippy. So anyway, we'd been going through that, like, you know. But of course, having the billion passengers, I would only be going very slow. We were going down a bit of a place anyway. I don't know whether the tires got, the tires got, but got a puncture. I'm doing about 50, I suppose, in the back wheel, and he was up in the back of my bike. Well, Jesus Christ, fuck, I just ran that way, you know, and the tire went, it was a blowout, not a puncture. And anyway, we landed safely. Fell in the end, like, but nothing happened to us. Bags got spilt and stuff like that. But so now we were like 20, we didn't know how far, but we were about 20 miles out of a place called Cobar. And it was in the middle of the day. And
but the other bike was alright.
the bike was alright, yeah. So took my wheel off and he went and took the tyre off and so it's a hole in the tyre, but I had a big heavy rubber patch from a truck in the very heavy tubes, you know. So I patched the what's the name of that, the tyre. And I had a tube of paste and everything like that, and I had patches. But I only had like 5 or 6 patches. Well, when we took the tyre, when we looked at the tube light, there was one big fucking hole in it. Then it was splintered, you know the way they go, like, you know. But I had a big patch anyway, and I got it over like 90% of it or something like that. And then another 3 or 4 patches around it. And then kept pumping the wheel like then, you know, you couldn't pump it before that, of course. The tube. Well, of course, rolling along the ground had caused dozens of little punctures. So you pump it up, put a patch on, pump it up, put a patch on, pump it up, find another one, put a patch on. There was 24 fucking patches, or 23 patches in it. And it eventually held. And several cars came by and trucks and that sort of thing. And they gave us patches, that's how we have to have enough of patches. And it held, eventually, with 24 fucking, all around, like, about 5 or 6 around the main one, then all around the fucking tube. There might have been 1 or 2 in it before. So we limped 2 of them now went in his bag and all the baggage and everything like that. And I sat right up. We didn't pump the tyre too hard, you know. Like about 10 or 12 pounds of pressure in it, like, just to keep it off of the rim, you know. And I sat right up along the tank. And that's how we rode into Cobar. I'm very fucking lucky got a tire too. So we headed on then for Willie and got into Willie and the whole landscape was fucking scorched, you know. We thought maybe, you know, it was natural that way, like, you know. But we booked into this hotel and it was fucking 3 pubs, post office, general store. That was the town, like, you know. Church, of course. But, which I suppose were 150 people lived there, something like that, along the main street.
The summer?
The summer, in about, it was lovely weather, it was about May, I'd say, something like April or May, you know, at the end of the summer, like. And, well, we booked into this very old hotel anyway, and cheap and stuff like that. Came out and stood in the bar, dark sort of a bar. Little fella about my age, he was smaller, baldy, inside the bar, you know. And he would probably be in his late 50s, early 60s. Nice fella, talking amongst ourselves and the trip and stuff like that, and where we were going. And so I said to the barman, how do the people live here, you know? Oh, he said, it's all sheep country. Well, we said, I guess that anyhow, although you wouldn't see much sheep, like, you know, not along, going along the main road. All sheep, he said. Yeah. So I said, well, you know, I must have walked out or something, looked up the street, you know, it was about 500 yards long. I said, the one street, yeah, it's just the one, well, he said, there's a little one off it, you know, where the general store is. That's it. See? No other street. So, well, I don't see anybody in the street like that, you know. Is there work here or something? Oh, he said, yeah, they're all out now. He said, the shearers are all out, it's crutching time. See? It's crutching time. Oh, I said, oh, that's it, so that's why there's nobody around. And I just talked to her, like, and then turned back to the lads again, talked to them, and well, what are we going to do, like, you know? We're staying here. Are we staying here or what, you see? Because we'd come in the evening before, and we'd stay the night, now it's, I don't know, maybe 10:30 the next day. And so, well, they were gone. They'd go on to Broken Hill, which was another 170 or 80 miles. And I don't know how I discovered it, but maybe the barman said, oh, he did, yeah. Oh, he said, lad, very hard to get into Broken Hill now. How's that? The Queen is there. She was out in her coronation. So they'll tell you the year. No, 1953 it was. Or at the end of 53. She was out in her coronation and she's coming to visit Broken Hill today. See? Or was it maybe, it might have been tomorrow, but anyway. So it'd be very hard to get a place to stay there. And this to be fucking, we have our sleeping bags. see him. And, well, that was one thing that put me off. The other thing was the Queen. I should go and fuck around watching the Queen, like, you know. Fucking flag waving and listen to all these idiots fucking shouting. I said, no, not for me. I said, if you want to hang about here for a couple of days, she'll be gone, you know. They didn't feel like hanging about. There was nothing to do with it. It was fucking one-horse town. So, it was as easy as that. They left. I said I'd stay. I said I'd probably see you up there in a couple of days' time or something like that, you know. And they said, oh yeah, we'll be around the town, you know. So, that's what I was going to do. So I walked up the town and came to the next bar. And they left. And I walked in and there was nobody in it. None of us, they were in the where we were staying, only the three of us. So, up in the van, this big, red-faced, pot-bellied, beer-bellied fella, about in his late 30s, walked up to me, you know. Sleek brill cream, sleek back, jet black hair, big-headed, jet black hair. Real fucking paddy if ever you seen one, maybe without the belly, like, you know. Oh. Well, you have, you know, beer, not the beer. Hot today, it fucking was. But I mean, it wasn't that hot, it wasn't the middle of summer, but it was still hot, you know. So anyway, just general conversation. He asked me my name and I taught him, he taught me his name. Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly. So,
He wasn't.
He wasn't. No, it was Australian origin. So I said, I was asking the same question, but I didn't ask him now. I said, so it's just here around here. Roswell. And he said, yeah. It like, doesn't last that long. 5 or 6 weeks work. So, why? He said, you looking for a job? He said, no, but I said, if I got one, I'd take one. Oh, he said, you work in the shield shed? Oh, yeah. And he said, well, there's nothing, there's just no way around, you know, there's nothing here. Unless, he said, you know, if there was man got sick or something like that. And his words were prophetic, like. The post office was direct across in all these places for, I forget what reason, as you go in, they have batwing doors, you know, or most of them do, like the American style, you know. And this fella came out and he was, you could see out the front door of the pub I was in, and it looked across, he could see out over his own batwing door. Oh, he said, there's one of the contractors in town. And he stopped. He said, I'll fucking bet you. He said, there's something wrong. There's a man sick or something. He wouldn't be here otherwise. And he said, he's coming across the street. He's coming in here. The man walked in, ordered the beer, looked at me, said something to the barman. They spoke to each other. Oh, he said, by the way, Irishman here, Will Fabian, Will Collins. Yeah. Never fucking stamp of a paddy written all over him, like big, strong, brown, curly hair, browny, dark, you know. It's all the features of Connemara man. Bill Collins.
Stride.
Yeah, hello, how are you, and all that sort of thing. Oh yeah, Stride. And, yeah, so, yeah. Round of what, like, yeah, I don't know, just passing through, like, you know. But I wanted to go up there while the Queen was up there. He gave a bit of a smile, like, you know, didn't say anything. He gave a bit of a smile. And they were talking away. He said, you looking for a job? What? So I said, no, I just passed through anyway. He said, I'll give you a job if you want. I said, oh yeah? He said, yeah. Do you ever work in the shield shed before? Oh, I said, oh I said, oh, yeah, that's good, yeah. And just conversation, like, where do you work? Oh, I live down Victoria, down Victoria. I said, I've done several seasons down that way myself, like, What part do you work in? Oh, fuck it. All around Horsham that way. Oh, Jesus, he said, I spent 2 seasons there. Christ, he said, I must know the state. Oh, Jesus, I was fucking no, fucking Aborigine in there. So I thought of her. What you say? Oh, yeah. I said, come across that. No, I knew most of them now. They said after 2 or 3 seasons. Anyway, all right. So it's just rouseabout, he said, like, and you can just put them in the sheep. So I said, yeah, no problem. Well, he said, I'll be leaving in half an hour. So I said, fine. Back down to the pub, got my gears together, and I see you outside this present pub. Back up, ordered another beer, and I was waiting there, and the next thing the pickup came along, and he just waved a small beer, and I haven't finished it, and out up on the bike, and I let him go. I actually had to let him go fucking half a mile in front of me, because the dust just hangs there, And off we went, and got out of it. He stopped at the shearer's quarters in the cookhouse. He said, just find himself an empty cabin there, and when you're ready, when you're changed, come down to the shed, you see. So, 10 minutes later, I was down in the shed, and we go out of the glaring sunlight, we went to this dark shed. You can't see a fucking thing, like, what I mean? And it's like doing the opposite, But anyway, you get used to the gloom after a few minutes, like, but I was walking like Johnny head in there, I could hear this voice like going, but it was way over there. So, and I'm walking along. The next thing, the shearer comes out and bumps straight into me, because the knife and see, even though he was right in front of me. Fucking idiot, he said. Jesus, grab that fucking way. Round, yeah. So, sorry, like, fuck you. Just, yeah, he didn't say anything, he just looked up at me. Fucking been talking about it. And I could hear this, hey, over here. Fuck, where is he? Oh, Jesus, there he is, and I could see the handrail. And there was a fence there, you see, by the height. And I could seem to be continuous. I just fucking stands back over, the top, and on top of all the sheep, like, and tore my way over. Got there eventually, like, you know what I mean? Oh yes, just as I jumped in, the shearer, clutching only takes like 45 seconds, something like that. Sheep out the back. And he just rushed in at this stage. This is how long it had taken me to suss out it. Rushed in the door. That's funny, I just fucking jump. He opens the door. Walks in. So, anyway, I got over to him, man, and he says, well, he said, just keep the pins full for the shearers, and then you can see, like, that the next one is a bit longer, but thin as well. And keep that full, and you'll be able to fill the shearer's pins easier if this one is full. And then this is said, and this is the big pin where you bring them in out of the yard, So that's it. So but watch the shearers, see that they don't, because they go screaming fucking mad if there isn't sheep, and they're wasting time, losing money. So I did that, and it worked. And of course, a lot of them were hoggets like 4 months old. You see, so they weren't very heavy. The ewes weren't very heavy either, because they were only about 2 months or something in lamb, But the fucking weather's what heavy, like, but very hard to get sheep into a pen, like, you know. Not, very difficult, not impossible, very difficult. Fuck you do go in, like, you know. Jesus Christ, you know. Strong, fit to no trouble to me at all. Then you'd get him in, like, after there was, you know, the pen was half full. But I kept at that anyway, an hour and a half later, something like that. Everything was okay inside, and I'd been drinking fucking bagfuls of warm water, you know. Sweat pouring out through me. But that started me, like, you know, going strong. Well, I was outside having a smoke. My foot up in the main fence outside, the main yard thing. The man comes up behind me, anyway, does the same thing, and like fag, and how's it going, Sid? I said, fine, you know. You managing okay? Yeah, sure. He was about that far away from me, like, you know. Which is where he leaned over and he said, "You never worked in the khaki sheep station before, did you, Bill?" I said, "No." It was sticking out fucking mile that you didn't. He said, I'll bet you were never around sheep at all in your life. No, never. Nothing ever to do with it. Well, he said, fucking fair play to you anyway. He said, you're a fucking tryer. He said, I'll say that much for you. He said, you're better than a lot of fucking jokers that know the game. You know, a better worker, like. So he said, I'll give you a few hints, he said. You'll kill yourself if you keep lifting the sheep like that's wrong with the bin. There's one thing you should never do. He said, but if you don't watch the pens and you leave only 2 in there, or 1, or maybe even none, but you know you're going to get them in, he said, you're going to be in trouble. Keep the pens full all the time. As long as, you know, a pen takes about 15 or 16 sheep, he said. After there's 10 of them gone, he said, start putting in a few, you know. And he said, and you're wasting your time, he said, running after sheep. He said, you get the feeling like the way you have to think sheep, like, you know what I mean? The way they're going to go. I mean, you know. Or watch the ones that's going to make a break for you or something like it. And he said you let her run. But anyway, he said, you know, you're doing all right. So, I did all right and it worked out fine. I forget how long I was there. About 10 days or something like that. And he was going on to the next shed. And he said,
did you in the 10 days, I mean, were there other roustabout there too?
There was another one on picking up the wool off the floor for the shearers. Yeah. And yeah, that was it. There was 5 shearers, 2 roustabouts. That was it. 5 shearers, 2 roustabouts. 7 and the contractor 8. So anyway, he says there was some speculation as to the number he'd want in the gang, you see. It all depends, and some of the sheds have, we call them stands, you know, where the shearing machine is. And some of them are 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 stands, you know. So the more shearers you'd have, the more roustabouts you have to have. And you have to have, of course, 2 extra as well for shearing itself, you know, because you have to have a classer, professional man, and yeah, and a wool packer, yeah, wool presser. So. Oh yes, and you have to have 2 piece, what they call piece pickers. Yeah, so the team, there's another 4 or 5 added on to the shearing team. And so he asked me, did I want to go with him for the next, which I thought that, you know, wasn't a bad effort on his part or mine.
What was the money like?
Oh, the money was good money, yeah. Oh, the shearing sheds are always good money. Of course, we were the lowest paid, like Ross got the lowest paid.
But even so, in comparison to other jobs?
In comparison to other jobs where I'd left in Sydney, you know, or anything like that, I was getting twice the wages.
Really?
And the best of food. Yeah. So I stayed with him. I think the season had already been going about 2 weeks when I got into it, and lasted another 4 or something like that. So I got about a month's work, and then I went back. I'd heard, you know, like all trades in your business as well, you all talk about your own thing, like, you know, 90% of your conversation in the university will be about university life. But it's the same thing with you know, farmers are sort of the same as shearers.
So you learn about other places and all.
So you get to and hear about jobs that are going. So, but in my case, there wasn't any more jobs close by. And there was shearers that would go to certain places, like, but they knew the contractor there, you know, it might be 100 miles away or whatever it is, but they know the contractor because the seasons change as you go north and south, you know, 200 miles away, and they'd get a job, whereas he would already have his team, but this fella had come to there every year, you know, for years. So I wasn't well enough yet, like, to know any contractors that would ask me back, you see. So, but I'd heard that now the shearing season was starting in Tasmania. And one way of getting a job there was going to a crowd called the United Graziers. They were like the IFA, if you know what I mean, but a branch of theirs was the shearing industry. They took, like the IFA, everything was under the umbrella, but they have their own sub-branches, you see. And one of them was the shearing, and in it they incorporated a department for hiring. They would send teams, yeah. It was part of their business, like. So I went into them in Melbourne, and I had a bike all the time then.
So how far up country were you when you were doing this?
It's 900 and some,
Sydney going there.
980 miles from Sydney.
Right.
Yeah.
So you went back down from there to Melbourne?
I went from there to Melbourne and went into the office in Melbourne and they said, yeah, you've got a job for you in Tasmania. So I can't remember whether it was the next day or 2 or 3 days, but off I went to Tasmania.
On a boat?
On a boat, yeah. It takes 10 hours or something. And landed in Hobart and went then by, can't remember, train I think. About halfway up between Hobart and Launceston is in the west, the southwest.
How big is Tasmania?
It's nearly as big as Ireland. But the two main cities are Launceston and Hobart. And so that's where I started to work. And I'd done about 2 months there, or something like that, up and down. Different shearing sheds with the same thing. And a young fella there did me for £20. I lost 2 for dress. They're nice young fellas. But he got sacked off the job for, I forget what. And he'd spent his week's wages before that. So he only had a little money. He borrowed £20 off me for his plane fare. And I never saw him. Yeah. He was a learner shearer. And then, where did I go after that? Came back to Melbourne and can't remember.
And did on these stations, was it the contractor also bring the cook in, or was it always the station that fed the crews?
The station? No, the contractor fed the crew. But you'd always get your meat on the station. One of the first things that was done.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. If the station owner, the cocky as they call him, if he hadn't already done it for you, so he'd kill a sheep, and then depending on how long you were there,
just one sheep.
Just one sheep, yeah. And depending how long you were there, then you'd kill your own after that. And you'd use a sheep about every 4 days or something like that, you know. Because mutton was the name of the game. You had it for breakfast, dinner and tea. And depending on the cook, of course, then, and how well he could doctor that, like, or make different things out of it. Stuff like that. But they were always, 95% of them were good. Because they'd had trouble for years and years and years, like, you know what I mean. And there's stories like that Banjo Patterson book now, but there's lots of stories in the Australian folklore. One of the expressions that it is Australia that I first started to remember. Who called the cook a cunt? Who called the cook a cunt? Yeah. So they'd kick the cook out. There'd be no work. They just fucking wouldn't work if he was a bad cook. No work. That's fucking did. And so it was up to the contractor to see that the cook that he was bringing was really stuff. And so the money was good, and what the name was good. But I can't remember now where I went or what I did, but I know that when I was leaving up there, we were working in Sindh on that book, we were working in a place between Wilcania and Menindee, and another young fella came on the job, an apprentice. Was he out of his time? I can't remember anyway, but he was about the same age as myself, and him and I sort of used to knock about together, and he had a motorbike. So on some of the weekends, we went down to Menindee, and he knew this countryside. He was from around there, within 100 miles of it or something like that, you know. And his farm, his people were cockies as well, but he was sort of surplus because there was another brother at home or something like that, or I forget now, but maybe there wasn't enough work. His father was a fit man, so. Or he was just earning money besides. But him and I sort of hit it off anyway, and we used to go off on the bikes, and we went to Menindee this day. And he said, I used to know a woman in here, he said, he used to fuck her, you see, so. I know she's still there, that's a couple of years ago. We called around to the house. So we went to the pub first, of course, and round to the house we went. And sure enough, she was home. And so she came out with us. No, this one had a motorbike, but he also had a car. So it's in the car we came. So I can't remember anyway how long we were out, but she said her mother would be home now, like, and that we'd go around there and see what her mother was doing, you see. And oh yes, and this girl had a baby. She was about 19 or something like that. The baby was about a month old, or no, 4 or 5 months old. And the mother had been away somewhere with the baby at some other neighbour of hers, whatever it was. And we went back there and had some food. And brought some drink with us. And both of them were into the drink. And they decided they'd go to bed. And that left me there with mother. And, well, mother and I decided to go to bed as well. See? But for some reason or other, this had not been decided upon by the time the mother, the daughter, and this fellow went to bed. This was nothing abnormal about this behaviour in the mother and the daughter, like, you know. And so because she'd been minding the child anyway or something like that, she kept the child, and the mother and this fellow would have to bed. Not with the child, the daughter didn't take her own child with her. The mother took the child to bed. Also, it seemed, I can't remember now the reason, but I think that the mother's bed was a lot bigger. It wasn't a double bed, it was 3/4 bed. Then we were in bed with this child, 6 months old or something like that, shoved up in the corner, and her and I into it, like, you know. Oh, fucking gee. But anyway, that's just one aspect of the story. Sometime or other I was going on my way back up that country again. I was going back to work. I'd arranged with this contractor, I can't remember who now, but because I worked for several of them after that up around that country. But I'd been away, I think, for 3 months or something like that. I didn't know where I was. But now it was time to go back. And there'd be 3-4 months' work. And I was getting the hang of it.
Is this the second year or something?
Well, I know, I don't know. It must have been, I think, the second year.
You're back from Tasmania.
Well, I think so, but I you know, it's, this thing is sort of, the continuation of, I think, is difficult, you know. The event I can remember. But, so, I was taking my time. I had 3 or 4 days to get there, something like that. It was only 1,000 miles, so. And I was going to see a friend of mine as well in Mildura. Oh, Jesus, that's funny, yeah. I actually did try to find Jim Nesbitt. He came from where he used to live around there when he wouldn't be on the big sites, you know. Well, he was around there for a good while, because it was him that, he was very militant man, he was very sensible. Not ultra-militant, you know. He wasn't rabid, if you know what I mean, or he never shouted, or anything. He was a great person. But it was him that formed, or got enough of people, or influence and everything, to build the first working men's club. And they made a magnificent job of it, built rooms. The beer was only half the price that it was in pubs, and all this stuff, you know what I mean. There was cafeteria, and it became very popular. And was now an institution, like, you know. It was him that had done it 15 years before that. Instrumental. So, he was well-known person, so, but I knew that he didn't live there now, like, you know, he did before, like, but he didn't live there now because at the times he was telling me the places where he lived on the Murray River, you see. But I didn't know how far, but I figured that if I called into this place, I mean, he'd almost probably be up on the plaque, you know. They usually have them in Westwood. That I'd find him. But all this said, no, some of the fellows around, you know, remembered him all right, knew him, 1 or 2 knew him well, but he hadn't been around for years. Hadn't been here for 4 or 5 years. And in the previous times when I'd worked with him, I'd never actually gone into when he left there or anything about it. And I remember him telling me that. So, that was never came to touch it. So anyway, I was on my way up to, back up to around with Kenya, or way up the other side. It was up near the Queensland border. And this was a Saturday. I'd left Mildura the day before or something like that. I was dawdling along, you know. The weather was fine and I was happy as Larry on my bike. And I had about 100 miles to go, something like that, to get back to Menindee, where this woman was, see? And hope, like, same would happen again, you know what I mean? So about 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm riding down this sort of a ridge, nice, no problems whatsoever, dirt road, and gets a fucking puncture, right? The back wheel. No hassle there. I had the outfit and all the gear and everything. So anyway, I don't know what I did then.
Walk away.
So I probably walked around the camp and had to look around and walked here and there, you know. Mm-hmm. And the fucking sun was splitting the stones and the heat was fucking deadly and sweat pouring off it, like, you know. Jesus Christ. But it was all new anyway, so. And I probably walked into the town and walked on, but I mean, I couldn't buy beer or anything like that, you know, because I had no money. And, so I came back to camp, and your man came home from work about 5:30 or something like that. Mandrake. He would have been about 50, I suppose. Difficult to tell his age, really. He was a scarecrow of a man, like, you know, wiry fucker. Nice fella, see. Come in. Oh, hello. And he introduced himself as well as Mandrake. So we're chatting away anyway, like, and forget how the subject came up, but he pulls a bottle out of somewhere, you see, and he takes a swig out of it, like, you know, wine, and offers it to me, and I didn't take any. So came down to sleeping or something. Oh yeah, we got
How many beds were in this?
Two.
Two.
Yeah. You got a blanket and an old fucking pillow without a pillowcase that was all greasy and fucking shitty and something, you know, no. It was up to yourself to supply the rest of it. The mattress was in a fucking state, like, you know what I mean? No sheets, no nothing like that. And so, oh yeah, he was giving me advice then, like, about, you go to the company store, you see, and get whatever you wanted. And he's telling me about, did I have a mosquito net, you see? I said, no, I'll have to wait, like, get one. He said, well, but Jesus, the mosquitoes are bad. He said, but they don't affect me at all. He said, I never use mosquito net. Because he said, as soon as they bite me, he said, no, he actually did say this. As soon as they bite me, he said, they die from alcoholic poisoning, you see. No. And he said it in a straight-faced manner, like, he wasn't laughing. I mean, it was a joke, but I mean. So, that was that anyway, and he started to shave or something like that. He went away to the washroom and he was like, clean himself out of it. And he came back, and there was some sort of an old, he had nails driven in, like, and an old piece of hessian pulled over, you know, from one nail to another. And on the back of it, he opens up, and he takes down his suit, you see. He's going out. This is now like maybe, what, 7:30 or something like that in the evening. And he shaved it. He was really fucking scrawny, skinny, about 6 foot or that way, you know. And then he starts putting on his clothes, you see. And I wasn't taking any notice. Dark sort of a suit. And I looked at him. And Jesus Christ, he looked like he was out from the fucking, one of the Viennese, or what do you call them, Kaisers, you know, gold braid. He had a cap on, something like this now, and it was all fucking braid. And the pockets and down the side of the trousers was black lining and silk or whatever you call that stuff, you know, brocade or something.
Yeah.
I'm looking at him. Oh, Jesus Christ, you know. Oh, he said, he probably went and he said, I'm in the buffs, he said, and I'm one of the special night, and I'm one of the fucking chairman or field marshal or something like that, you know, Buffalo. And it was one of the events that, I don't know, they held it twice a year. So off he went anyway, and I don't know, whatever time I wandered around, didn't know where to go, not to do, didn't know anybody. And probably went to bed about 10 o'clock or something like that. And then the fucking mosquitoes came in there, millions, and fucking dive bombers, you know. And lying this on mattress and put the fucking blanket over me, like, you know, trying to, they'd get inside the blanket anyway, like they'd get my fucking feet or something like that. And of course, no sleep. Tired as fuck, like, but couldn't sleep. But anyway, he arrives home about 12, pissed as a fucking, staggered in the door, fell on the fucking bed, like, he used to go to piss every night. Or it seemed like that to me. After about 5 days of this anyway, and I'd started work and got myself a mosquito net and a couple of sheets and things like that, and pillowcase, all ticked up, like, you know what I mean. And I went back to the camp sergeant. I found him somewhere or other, and I said, hey, you know, I want to get out of there. Can't fucking live there. He said, I wonder how long you'd be. I wonder how long before you'd be back, he said. But he said, I had no place else to put you, he said. And I still haven't. But I'll tell you what, he said, look, right opposite you, and all of these things were back to back, you know, the academy, you went the back of it, then a whole fucking barrack type of thing, like, you know. But you walked up by it, everything was built up off the ground, you see. Because of the monsoon thing, you know, the rain and stuff like that, see. So, and there was a deck, like about 4 foot wide or something like that. So right opposite here, he said, there is a cabin, he said, and it's empty. Now he said, you can please yourself about it, he said, but the fellow that's in it, he said, he's a countryman of yours. She knew it was on it. He's a countryman of yours. This fellow was an Aussie, the campsite. He said, but he's as bad as the fellow you're going to leave. He said, he's not there now. He's gone walkabout. He said, but he's an alcoholic as well. But he's a rougher, fucking tougher man than the one you left. He said, he's a gentleman. Which he was right. He was a gentleman, you know. But he said, if he comes back, he said, you can do what you like. He said, I have no other place for you at the moment. He said, so you take your own chances, like, you know. He said, But there's only one thing about it, he says, that if he does come back, he said, he probably will get the sack. And so, you could have the cabin on your own for a while until I put somebody in with you. So, I took my chances. And about a week passed, and I came home one day, and the door was open, and lying on the bunk was this massive fucking guy. Big, powerful man, about 55. And he's as drunk as a skunk, you see. He's lying in bed. But he becomes aware of my presence, like, you know what I mean? And he drags himself off his bed, leans under the fucking bed, and pulls out a bottle of whiskey or rum or something. Throws the bottle over to me, like, you don't want to take my drink, and, you know, fuck you. I mean, please your fucking self, and he fell back in the bed again, you know, fuck you. Anyway, he was so drunk that he just fucking passed out, like, and that was that. And, oh, God, what am I going to do? So, no, I couldn't go. Camp Sergeant told me there was no good in going back to see him again, like, you know. Yeah. Went off to work next morning. He was still there. I'd got up a couple of times when I went out for a piss and all that, talking away to himself, fucking and blind and staggering around, hitting doors and banging here and there and shouting and throwing. Not much sleep again that night, until and fell on my fucking bed and on top of me and broke the mosquito net fucking all around my face and tried to, Jesus Christ. This guy now was about fucking 15, 16 stone, like, you know. And not much fucking fat on him either, I tell you. And I knew he was Irish, you see, like the way he was talking, you know. But I knew he was a long time Australian Irish, you know. Came back that evening anyway, and he'd sobered up a bit. And he sat in the bed again, and he was hands in his head like, oh, Jesus Christ, oh, my fucking. And he's cursing and swearing. And he's no more money, and he's no more drink, you see. He stands up and he asked me for some money. I said, I haven't got any, I didn't get paid yet, you see. Oh, Jesus Christ, I need a drink. So, he went off anyway. And he came back with a bottle of cheap wine. He bummed some money after somebody like that. Back to a bottle of cheap wine. But, I mean, this guy could drink a bottle of cheap wine, like, and it hardly had no effect in it, like, you know. He had to have the fucking strong stuff or else fucking good wine or something. So, he drank it anyway, and he was better. And he wasn't stroppy or anything like that. And he was, well, where are you from? You're Irish, are you? Oh, God, he said, you know. I'm from Donegal or something like that. 40 years ago or something. And he began to tell me his story and all that sort of thing. He was heavyweight champion of Queensland one time. Worked in the bush all his life. He worked in Mount Isa for 20 years, but he's come and go, and he said, I'll probably get the sack now. He said, tomorrow or something like that. He said, give me my walk away. He said, but, yeah, he said, I'll be back again in 6 months. They'll forget about it. They always give me my job back. He was a miner, too. And he was showing it as well, like, you know. I don't know, he was between 50 and 55. They get blue marks around their face, you know, from the dust. Silicone. And he was coughing as well, like, and he wasn't, you know, he was a big man, but he was on his way out at this stage. They all, if they stayed at the mining long enough, it gets them all eventually, like, down below, you know. So, about 3 days later, he was gone. And I met the camp sergeant, and he told me, he said he got the sack and he's out. He's gone off up to Tennant's Creek or Darwin or somewhere like that. Coming. But he had a few pounds to collect it. He was working there, you see. And he went for the piss. And he fucked off somewhere to Cloncurry or Charters Towers or somewhere like that, where he knew all that country. So there I was now, and hurt myself. Grand cake all together, like, and so fucking hot that I took my mattress outside and I got a clean mattress. It was a clean mattress for a change in this, because the other fella had been throwing all these bottles and everything on the previous one, or boots, socks, everything shit, you know. Nobody would live with it. That's why, like, you know, he had the cabin to himself until I arrived. So the second one was alright. This fellow was clean. Yeah, so Tom O'Loughlin was his name. And so I was there for about 10 days or something with nobody. And he came home from work one evening and there's this young fella sitting on the bed. See, and he had his gear and all that sort of thing. I came in. He was even younger than me. Well, he looked very fresh-faced, blondie hair. Good stump of a lad now, about 5'10" or 11, strong and stuff thin. Hello, he says. Hello. My name is Stieglitz. I said, oh, hello. My name is Willie Xavier. And that ended that. He had no more English. I am Swedish. I'm Swedish. So, days passed anyway, and he went to work, and I went to work, and I...
Where were you working? What was your job?
Oh, I was working, they were building a new smelter. A new lead smelter. A new copper smelter. They used to mine copper there as well.
So you were in construction, right?
I was in construction, oh yeah, I was in construction. And so I came home, and this fella must have, how he got there, anyway, it's another story, but there was 3 or 4 other Swedes in the place, and he knew one of them or something like that. As time passed, because he wasn't working with any other Swedes, he began to pick up English very fast. Very fast. So, we got to be good friends, and we used to go swimming nearly every evening. There was a big swimming pool there, but it was fucking bastard because there were neon lights and mosquitoes. Well, the mosquitoes weren't so bad, but the fucking beetles of every shape and fucking size and moths, and the water was full of them, and if you didn't keep your mouth closed, you'd be swallowing these bloody things, you know. So that was a hazard, but anyway, we liked it. We used to go running and stuff like that. We got on fine. And
how old was he?
He was 19 then, yeah. So about 3 weeks passed, and I came home one evening, and there he was, lying on the bed. And so he says to me, I said, hello, Steve, how are you? And he said, I'm not good. I'm sick. So I said, oh, Jesus, sorry to hear it and all that sort of stuff. And what happened? Oh, he said, I don't know. He said, I think his sunstroke. And I went over to him and I looked at him and sort of thing like that, and he put his hand up to his head, and I felt his forehead, and he was all hot and bothered and sweat pouring out of him and all that sort of thing. And I went out and I got some cold. You couldn't get cold water, like, but I mean, if you dip a cloth in the thing and then shake it, like it comes off, you know.
Right.
And I put it over his brow and all that sort of thing. And during the night he was, wasn't very in the morning. Like I said, well, you better go to hospital. He said, no. He said, no, I'll be all right. It's just sunstroke, you know. And so I said, well, Jesus, I hate to leave you like this. He said, oh, no, you go to work. He said, I'll be all right. So I went to work. In the evening I came home. He's gone, see? But his gear was there. So I went, I didn't know what the hell. He never, I knew he didn't go to work. And I knew he couldn't have got better so soon. So I found one of the Swedish fellas, and it turns out that he was taken to hospital. See? I can't remember now how this happened, but he was taken to hospital. So, a couple of days passed by anyway, And I went to the hospital to see him, and he was still pretty sick, see? And he said, oh yeah, the sunstroke, like, and stuff like that. But he said, I'll be okay. I said, oh, Jesus. I was working out in the sun. I used to have my shirt off and all that sort of thing. But I didn't get sunburnt. I was getting browner every day. So I went to see him again then after about the 5th day or something like that. And he said, I'm getting better, like, you know. So after, well, I don't know, he came home that evening or the next day or something like that. And he had one more day off or something. And he went back to work. And he got better and better, and he done our thing, and he had a great time, and went to work and got our money, and occasionally we'd have a few beers, but not that often, you know. And life passed for 10 months like that. Everything was fine. Until it was the monsoon time again, and it fucking rained and rained and rained, and when it rains there, it doesn't fuck around. And the rivers come up like and went over the bridges, and all the fellas that lived in the town side, 90% married men, couldn't come to work. And there was a lot of the fellas that worked in the power station couldn't get to work, so they called for volunteers. Would we work double shifts? So I said, well, that'll do me, I'll work. So in we went, anyway, came off work at 5 o'clock or whatever, I can't remember, and straight into the job. Just half an hour was all we had. We had to be there at 5:30, so just time to get the dinner, no washing or anything like that, and work until 12 o'clock, see? And then come home, have a shower, and get up and go to work next morning, see? Or there was other ones then that you had to start work at 12 until 8, and then you could get as fast as you could, or however you could, to your own job and work all day, see, after working there all night. So we did that for 3 days.
The worst to do it, that one.
Hey?
That was a harder one to do.
That was a harder one to do, yeah. So anyway, whatever coming and going was, we wouldn't get half enough sleep anyway, like, you know what I mean, and it was fucking getting us down, and I was falling asleep on the job and stuff like that, but however, it just barely mattered. And there was this other Irish fella there, a fella called George Hurst, and he'd also taken on this thing, you see. I can't remember what department of the job he worked on, you know, but whatever it was anyway. Yeah, forget now. I was on the morning, I was on the night shift, and he was. And the foreman, or a foreman, came in the morning. He said, that's it, he said, it's over, finished with, you guys are finished. You're off the job. You're sacked. Sacked? Why for? How come? I said, he had 2 pieces of paper. The car used to call them pinkies. You know, you're finishing up slips. And we both standing alongside it. He said, I don't know what it was. He said, which of you is favourite? I said, I am. Well, he said, you're okay, you can go back to work. He said, but this thing is finished now, the rain, they were able to get back across the river. But he said, you finished, he said, Hurst. You're off the job, altogether, out. So I'd known this already, because he was Irish, because there wasn't that many Irish there. And him and I used to knock around a bit together, and occasionally we'd go to the pub and have a beer and stuff like that. And he was a nice fella. Came from Kildare or something like that. And he said, why so? And the foreman said, I've got to do it. He said, you'll have to go back on your own job and find out. He said, whatever it was your problem was. He said, but you were reported to be fucking lazy or wouldn't work or something like that, or dodging around, or whatever, fucking around. He said, but he said, you're okay. So
who was the other pizza for then?
Well, one was for me. I was getting the sack as well, but there must have been something written on it, on my one. See?
This is separate from your main job, not
from the whole lot, everywhere. Yeah, but this was also finishing up because it was only a 3-day thing, and the river went down. So we went off anyway, and this was a slip now to go and get your money and finish on the job. He said, "You can please yourself." He said, "You can go back to work or finish up, whatever you like." So your man went off anyway to his job, and found out that it was because he wasn't doing his job properly or whatever it was. But anyway, I didn't go with him, but he came back again, and we met in the cabin or something like that. And he said, "That's fucking right." He said, "I'm finished." He said, "They've sacked me." So we talked about this for a while. I said, "Fuck him anyway." I said, "You know, if you were sacked, I'm fucking going to. Fuck him all." See? So, that's right, the Swedish fella had gone. By this stage, he'd gone a couple of months. Because I was there about 10 months or something like that. And he was only stayed about 8 months. And so up we went, got our wages, and decided we'd leave the next day. So, and the plane was leaving. We were flying out of it now. So that's just going to show how much things have changed, you know.
But you wasn't to be spending much money.
Oh no, I had a good few pounds. I had probably £400 or £500 that stage, you know.
And where used you keep the money away?
Oh, in the post office.
Town.
Yeah. No, we didn't have to. No, they had a place on the campsite for, you know, because fellas couldn't be always going to
Then
town.
how would they pay you? Would they pay you cash and you put it back into this thing?
Oh no, you have to do that yourself.
No,
They pay cash. Cash, yeah, pay cash. Yeah. And you just go to the post office and put it in. So we got our money and booked the tickets and went and had a few beers and stuff like that, and probably had more than we should have. But next morning the plane was leaving at 8 o'clock, and it was about, and you had to find your own way, like there's no buses or anything like that, you know. And it was about a mile into the town, and about 2 miles then you had to go over it. You could walk into the town like this and then back out of the airport. But of course, when we knew we could get a taxi or get out there somehow, we wouldn't have to walk it out, like, you know. Probably taxi, if I remember rightly. So, I don't know, was I depending on him or was he depending on me? But whatever, none of us woke up next morning. The plane was leaving at 8, and it was 7:30. No breakfast, no nothing. We had, I think, packed the bags or something like that, but we fucking walked into town, which was a mile. And all we could do was hope, like, that the fucking plane would wait, you know, because there wouldn't be, it was only a smaller plane anyway. So, we got the taxi immediately in the town, and told him to mad dash for the airport, you know. The airport was only fucking a strip, you know, rough ground, like, rough graded with a machine, but no tarmac or anything. And I had nothing to eat, because I'd never flown before, and I didn't know you get anything to eat on the plane, like, you know what I mean? Which I can't remember now about anyway, but, so, oh Jesus, I mean, I couldn't do that at all. I said, fuck it, I'm going to have to get something to eat. So I said to the taxi driver, stop. And I dashed into this fucking shop. And the first thing I saw was, on the counter, big fucking pile of cakes, see? And there was a sweet, you know, what's called currant, sweet cake. Not as heavy as Christmas pudding, but, you know, like that, rich stuff, like all sorts. And I said, just give me that. Just wrap it up as it is, like, about 2 pounds of it, you know. Shoved it in a bag or something like that and dashed out, got in the taxi, out of the airport, and sure enough the plane hadn't gone, like, you know. Well, we were booked and they knew that, and there was 2 missing, so they waited around for a while. I think we were about 10 minutes late or something like that. Never happened again like anywhere else, but so got on the plane, everything was fine, and plane takes off. As I tell you, it's my first time in a plane, you see. And it's shudders and rattles. It's an old army plane converted, like what they call a DC-3. A Douglas DC-3 or a Douglas 3, whatever they call it. And it shudders and rattles and takes off down the fucking runway, and off we go, and up we go, and Jesus, this is a great crack altogether, And in the meantime, whilst all this was going on, I opened the fucking paper bag or whatever it was, and I'm munching away at this fucking, and I'm wrapping it, and I'm eating this fucking cake. Oh, Jesus, it was lovely. And I was fucking starved. And I don't know, I suppose he was probably hungry too, but maybe he didn't eat cake or something. I don't remember him eating any of it anyway. And he was in a different seat to me. I don't know, was he in front of me or behind me or what. But off we go. And the next stop down, they were stopping, just going to stop about 4 or 5 times on the way down. The first stop was Charters Towers.
Where were you going?
Brisbane. First stop via Townsville, you see. First stop was Charters Towers. Great crack, watching all these bush and emus and fucking flocks. 'Cause they don't fly very high, those things. And it rocked around a bit. And I said, oh, Jesus Christ. It is such a fucking... And the air pockets, the fucking cat on it, fucking wobbling all over the place, especially, this is quite true of that. And these are things like, and you could see the fucking wind wobbling in it, So, we lasted out anyway. Coming down to Charters Towers. It started to come down. My stomach. And up it came. Okay. And all I could find is, wow! Filling the fucking thing up like. Have another blast of it and just fucking full to the top now. I'm trying to let it down here so let's spill it out over.
Was anyone seeing you doing this?
I can't remember.
I can't. No one sit beside you?
No, I just used my own. And I looked around and we were landed and it was taxiing down the runway, you see, and of course you're not supposed to stand up for this. And I take their fucking safety belts off. Who's this? Come back, out of the time. Kick the door over.
Empty the sleeves.
Down here, nothing. All this sweet cake. Well, I suppose she understood, didn't I, what happened? I suppose, I can't remember. But we weren't there half an hour, and I was probably feeling better and all this sort of stuff, But off we go again, and every time we landed, which was 5 times down to Brisbane, or 6 times, happened every time. But now, because I had nothing, you see, somebody said to me, "It is pouch there in front." Especially for these things, fucking wax fucking bags, I didn't find that out for a couple of years after, I think. So anyway, got over and got down to Brisbane, and I don't know, this fella fucked off from Brisbane. I lost him anyway, and I made my way on down to Melbourne, and that was it. By train, I didn't fly any further. Jeez, I wouldn't I'd never again go on a plane. Never. Never again fucking see you catch me in a plane.
So you had £500 or £400 something there in your pocket?
Ah, sure, I was a rich man. I was a rich man. And there was plenty around there at the time. Then I got to know the crowd, started going to dances. And I got a job in the docks. It was, you know, it was a good job too. It was one of the best jobs you could get, actually. Be a dock worker. Wharfie, they used to call it. But I got restless feet after about 7 or 8 months of that, and I fucked off to an open cast coal mine, about 200 miles up north eastern Victoria, a place up in Gippsland. And Jesus Christ, I couldn't believe it, but it was fucking same shit again, you know.
But did you not think it was? Did you think it was somehow was going to be different? Or why would you go up to that kind of a place again?
Because of the money.
Oh, right.
You know, money. Well, I just was into the travelling bit, you know. The nomad thing we were talking about the other day.
What was the money?
The money was good money, yeah.
What was that? What was good money?
Good money then. Well, I ended up...
Was it compared to your £14 that you were getting paid in England?
Yeah, well, I doubled that nearly in Mount Isa. Doubled it. See? That was including my board as well, you know what I mean? It was getting about 20... Clear, we were getting about £26 a week, you know.
No, definitely spend it.
No, well, no. There's all sort of enticements there which didn't bother me, like gambling was fucking rife, you know. You could fucking... And as many of them did, like, lost their wages every week, you know. But, so I'm up there, and same old shit again with the fucking camp. But now, fucking worst had they had there. Of course, I thought that, but it probably wasn't, you know. And this time it was...
You walked in this time, you knew what you were saying.
Well, I did in a way, but it was also my first. All these things were firsts for me, you know. And Cam Sadden gives me a sack made from that strong linen, you know, with stripes in it. So there's a shed over there, you can fill it up with straw. That's your bed, like, you know. Same thing with the fucking pillow, like, gives you, no, fucking...
So it was worse than the other one?
Well, it was worse, except that the straw was clean and the sack was clean. Yeah. But, I mean, there was plenty fucking rats living in the straw, you know, or mice, anyway, you know. But I was learning, you know, and I only stayed in that place about a month or something like that, and I moved to a better hostel, which was only a couple of miles away. It was more expensive, like, but the food was a bit better. And I moved there because I knew a fellow from home. I met him on the way. From Limerick. Yeah, from near Boher. And
you knew him. You actually knew him.
I knew him, yeah.
Before you left.
Oh yeah. He was about the one age as my brother. Like, he was 3 or 5 or 6 years older than me. He was an awful man for gambling and drinking and stuff like that. He was getting in their fights. He was always fighting. He's always had battered fucking ears and eyes and stuff like that. His knuckles are all just fucked up.
What was he like that when he was at home?
He wasn't as bad drink now, like, and stuff, you know, his downfall. But, no, actually, he never had money at home, but he'd still fight, like, you know. But, I was there 3 or 4 months, like that, or 5, and, what do you call this? Like Manchester United and Coventry, the finals, the cup, the FA Cup final was on. And there was 2 or 3 English fellas, a couple of Scots fellas, and 2 or 3 Irish, and they're all inside my cabin. See? I was the one that had the best wireless. And But you had to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning to hear the match, you see. And of course there was plenty of drink thrown around, and beer first, of course, then the wine, 3 or 4 bottles of wine. Everybody got pissed. But my friend from Limerick got really pissed, which was his, regular thing like. But he wasn't maybe that bad, because he staggered up to we lived in the same block, and in the morning I didn't get to bed until 5, and I got up again at 7. I had to be work 7:30, so I had half an hour to get to breakfast. Just fucking throw it down. I can run out and catch the bus at 7:20, and it took 10 minutes to get to work. Called him. Would not have had my breakfast. The bus, they were only just piling to the bus, ran back again, which wasn't that far, from here to the end of the lane that goes across there. Wouldn't go to work, shouted at him, shook him. Yeah, right, yeah, I'll be there, I'll be there. Don't worry, I'll be there. And clock me in, he said, clock me. This used to happen, people would do that, you had to be careful. So I get to work anyway, and we worked on the same site together, him and I. Got there, clocked him in, about 10 o'clock. Foreman comes around with 2 clock cards, comes up to me, said, your friend never turned up for work and you clocked him in. I said, what are you talking about? He said, the same second, look. The same fucking second. Boom, boom. Which was foolish of me. Said, you finished this act. Get this book out, same system, widespread in the construction world of Australia. Pink. The office gets you paid. I really didn't give a fuck anyway. I had some money, and I had about 50 quid to get with week in hand and holiday pay, and which wasn't a lot in those times, So, I wasn't saving so much then, because I was learning how to drink and stuff like that, how to spend it, women and whores, stuff like that. So, but I had 70 or 80 pounds on me anyway. But, forget now what I done with the other money, can't remember. But I was finished, right? And I was going to leave next morning, go back to Melbourne, see. But what did we start doing? Only playing cards that night. And I lost my 70 or 80 pounds. But I was holding my own. We're playing for 3 or 4 hours. 4 hours, maybe 5 hours. 2 in the morning, playing poker. And pantoon. We played switched from one to the other. But this fellow anyway was losing about 20 pounds. That's all he had. But he had a job, But he asked me for a little of a tenner, which I gave him, because I still had, I was losing a few pounds, but not much. He ended up the whole fucking lot. After we gave him the tenner, he paid me back the tenner. He grudgingly gave me a tenner to get a ticket to Melbourne. Grudgingly. After me, And then he won a couple of hundred. So anyway, down to Melbourne, met some of the lads, went to the pub that night, borrowed money, like a tenner or something like that, won 70 or 80 pounds that night, playing cards again. Got it all back. So, fucked around there, different jobs, loads of work. And met the fellow that was telling you about the women and looking at the shop one day, met him, had known him anyway like that. And he did it, pissed off at this town. And I said, so am I, like, you know, there long, month or 6 weeks. We'll fuck off to South Australia. So we did. And we got a job. But it was just before Christmas and very hot weather in Adelaide, and we'd got ourselves a place to stay. And things like were alright, so but we only got about, it was a fortnight just before it closed. They closed down, the construction thing closed for a fortnight, you see. So we were last pay anyway, actually, and we had about 35 or 40 pounds. But that soon went anyway, and Christmas came with no fucking money, and he had no money, and I had no money. And so we decided we'd have to get work somehow or other, just fucking have to get casual work. So we got a job. I did, I don't know, I forget now what he did. I got a job in the Coca-Cola factory, remember, you've heard that story, but I drank 15 or 16 bottles of Coca-Cola the first day I started work. But it was a great job because all you had to do was just, as the bottles came along, put them in the fucking tin like that all day long. Fantastic job. Second day I drank 10 bottles, third day I drank 5, fourth day I drank 1. After that I couldn't fucking look at it again for years. So I've got 10 days work out of it, something like that. Tide is over. And Christmas passed, and we got another place to stay, and got another job, and things were all right. We only had about a fortnight's wages got at this stage as of the night that we were living out 20 minutes out in the bus ride. Some fucking races came up anyway, like this fellow was into the races, horses. Off we went to the races, and he had about 30 pounds or something like that, 35 pounds, and I had about the same. So we were doing all right, like. And comes home broke, see. Well, that was fine, and could I lend him a tenner? See. No, 15 pounds in the night, probably more, probably 15, 18. So I did. Which left me about 18, like, and I still had to pay my things and stuff like that, you know, which was about £7 a week or something. Comes home, there was 2 days races. Comes home the second day, he had to fucking walk or something like that, 5 miles, couldn't handle the fucking tram fare home. And again, lend him another £5 now for cigarettes or whatever it was. Racing was finished. Anyway, we struggled on and fucked around for quite some time. Another couple of months, something like that, and getting nowhere.